Good afternoon, everybody. Just choose quietly. You can eat, it's okay, it doesn't need to go totally silent. My name is Vicki Case. I am the president of, they have to write this for me. I'm the president of the board of directors of the Brattleboro Area Chamber of Commerce, in case none of you knew that. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our annual lunch with the governor event. I think this is one of the best things we do all year. I love this event. I look out and I see all these happy, smiling faces, eating, enjoying company of all the business people around. I want to extend a very special welcome to Governor Scott, who's making his second Lunch with the Governor appearance today. So welcome, Governor Scott. Before I turn the podium over to the governor, I really want to take a moment to thank the generous sponsors who made today's lunch possible. Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, Brattleboro Reformer, Brattleboro Savings and Loan, Brattleboro Subaru, Faith Ford, the Richards Group, Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, the Hotel Pharmacy, River Valley Credit Union, SIT, and Vermont Country Deli. All of these businesses and organizations are great community partners. Please take the time to look at the program on your table to learn more about each one of them. We want to thank today's chefs, Kristen Tolino and Justin Thompson, for the delicious food, and the American Legion for hosting us. By the way, your space looks fabulous. The space we are in just underwent a facelift, and Governor Scott, you are the first dignitary to visit the new and improved interior. Lucky you. Who knew? As I said earlier, this is Governor Scott's second chamber lunch. In addition to speaking today, Governor Scott will take a few questions from the audience, so start thinking about those questions that you would like to ask him, please. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the governor of the state of Vermont, the Honorable Phil Scott.
Please continue to eat. Really nice to be down here today for a number of different reasons, one of which is pretty simple. It seems it's great to see some green grass, because when I woke up this morning in Berlin, we had 3 inches of snow, and it's really discouraging. You know, all the time that I was praying for snow in November and December, it seems as though that's over now. We need to move on to spring and summer and get to enjoy some of that. So it's great to be back here in Brattleboro, and after this event I'm going to visit Grace Cottage Hospital, so I want to take a moment to acknowledge the work of the hospital, AT&T and my departments of public service and the Agency of Commerce to ensure wireless coverage at the hospital. And as you know, there's been some problems associated with that, but AT&T has agreed to roam on the Coverage Co. network. And I know with the financial issues Coverage Co. is facing right now, this continues to be a concern for the whole region, and my team is working hard to identify options. But I'm pleased that we have a solution for Grace Cottage, and the customers of a major carrier will now be able to have service while Coverage Co. is operational. So, as you may recall, on my first day as governor, I issued an executive order outlining the strategic goals of my administration. And they were pretty simple, and it was to grow the economy, make Vermont more affordable, and protect the most vulnerable. 3 really simple principles, which guide us in every policy, every decision we make on a daily basis. But as we work towards those goals, we have to recognize that there are 3 numbers. I've talked about these before, but they sum up the challenges pretty well, and that's 6, 3, and 1. Long before becoming governor, and for years, we've been seeing, on average, 6 fewer workers in our workforce, 3 fewer kids in our K-12 education system, and certainly the most concerning to me, nearly 1 baby born to addiction every single day. So when you look back over time, those numbers really do add up. A couple thousand a year for labor, our workforce, and 1,000 per year with education. And again, that one concerning notation about one baby born to addiction. So my agenda is focused on addressing these issues, from expanding our workforce with investment in training and recruitment to making Vermont more affordable, and with a budget that doesn't raise taxes and fees. What I proposed was eliminating the tax on Social Security benefits for those in low and moderate incomes, and eliminating and lowering the workers' compensation rates, and as well to investment in preventative care, mental health, and clean water. And we've been doing a lot of good work in Montpelier. We've actually reduced workers' compensation and unemployment insurance costs. We've held the line on taxes and fees in our first year, so Vermonters and businesses have a chance to keep more of what they earn. We've increased the efficiency of government, which is pretty exciting in some respects, and reduced the cost of growth by tens of millions of dollars. And I'm very proud of my team for putting progress ahead of politics. But rather than going through a laundry list of these initiatives, I wanted to focus today on education. So I want to start with school safety, an issue that's created a lot of emotional and passionate debate over the last number of weeks. Because in February, just 2 days after the school shooting in Parkland, Florida, we learned of a very real threat and a similar plot right here in Vermont. But thanks to two individuals, brave individuals, who spoke up after a very concerning text exchange, law enforcement was able to make an arrest before anyone was harmed. Only by the grace of God did we have a positive outcome. After reading this affidavit outlining this individual's plans, the reality of how close we came to a tragedy like Florida really caused me to do some soul searching. Now, I've hunted and fished my entire life. I've got a gun safe full of guns, including the one I got when I was 13. And to be very honest with you, as a state senator, as lieutenant governor, and as governor, I never felt the need to change our gun laws here in Vermont. Even immediately after Parkland, I believe, since we were such a small, tight-knit state where we talk with one another, that we were different and somehow insulated from the violence the rest of the world was seeing. But I was wrong, and that's not easy to admit when you're wrong. But the world is evolving, and I'm not sure that it's moving in the right direction. Because in this case, it wasn't a question of if the shooting was going to take place, it was just a question of which day. He had planned it for months without anyone being aware. He had a kill list and kept a journal entitled The Journal of an Active Shooter, along with books about Columbine. His goal was to have more kills than Virginia Tech. As a reminder to those that don't remember, the death toll at Virginia Tech was 32, which made it the 5th deadliest in U.S. history. Now, I've said many times, I believe public safety is the primary function of any government. It rises to the top and is our #1 responsibility. And as governor, that responsibility starts with me, and I take it very seriously, regardless of the political ramifications. As a result of these recent events, I work with my team to identify ways we can better protect our kids and our communities. Within a week of the Parkland shooting and the Fairhaven situation, I put forward an action plan focused on school safety, access to guns, and building stronger communities. We started with school safety, immediately launching a statewide review of all the schools throughout the state with state and local law enforcement. And a report was delivered to me last week. The review found we have strong protocols in place, but we also have some shortcomings. And that's why I proposed $5 million to support those improvements, and I appreciate the legislature's willingness to work with me on this. To continue this work, I've signed an executive order creating a Community Violence Prevention Task Force. And this group will identify policy changes to enhance safety and reduce violence in our communities. And finally, as I know many of you are aware, I signed 3 gun safety bills into law. S-221 was the first. This will provide Vermonters with a life-saving tool to help reduce gun tragedies such as suicides or murders. And it's already being used to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them. H.422 gives victims of domestic violence who've endured unthinkable abuses added protections and a greater sense of security. Both of these new laws had unanimous support from both sides of the aisle and from both the House and the Senate, as well as consensus among most sportsmen and victim groups. The third bill, which includes a gun safety provisions relating to background checks, bump stocks, magazine capacity, safety training requirements for those purchasing guns under the age of 21. This bill was admittedly a little bit more contentious, but contrary to what you may have heard, because facts really do matter, S55 does not take away anyone's gun, nor does it take away magazines of any size that you own now or purchase in Vermont before October 1st. And I want to be absolutely clear. I believe these measures will make a difference. And I firmly believe each and every one of them is consistent with both the United States and Vermont Constitution. Discussions around these measures have been difficult, emotional, and complex, which usually leads to inaction. And as I said, when I signed them, this is not the time to do what's easy. This is the time to do what's right. Now, I know I disappointed many of my supporters, maybe some of you right here in this room. And I know I may lose some support over my decision to sign them, but the alternative was really to do nothing. And I simply didn't think this was acceptable to any of us. If we don't try to reduce the possibility of a tragedy here in Vermont, like Parkland, like Virginia Tech, Orlando, Sandy Hook, Dallas, or Charleston, and the list goes on, if we don't even try to prevent another death from domestic violence and another child growing up without a parent, and if we don't try to reduce suicide and the pain it leaves behind, then in my mind, we would have failed Vermonters. And that is why I made the decision to act, which leads me to the next topic, which is education reform. And this may seem like an odd transition, but let me explain. As I just outlined, I had long felt that we didn't need any changes to our gun laws, that our existing system was sufficient. But I had to accept the reality of the situation that we faced. I had to accept that things were changing. I had to have the courage to tell people who supported me, people who are now calling me a traitor, as I stand in line in the grocery store and the gas station, or protest me at events such as this, where I'm invited to speak. That I had gotten it wrong, and that we needed to be willing to do more, even when it means changing our way of thinking and the status quo. Rethinking the way we've always done things, standing up to special interests and changing views we've had for decades. On education issues, I'm asking the legislature to have just a little bit of that kind of objectivity and courage, because I believe we all share the goal to provide our children with the best education possible. But the reality is, we have an incredibly inefficient K-12 system that's diverting resources from educational opportunities for our kids, meaning our high spending is not producing the best possible outcomes. The data is clear. It's not increasing opportunities, it's not improving results or reducing inequality. But just like we built consensus and found a balance between Second Amendment rights and gun safety reforms, we can forge a path that offers more and better educational opportunities in a way that's more efficient. So our kids are getting the most value out of every dollar, and the investment is more sustainable and affordable to taxpayers. This is going to require my colleagues to step outside of their politics of the past. And what should concern each of us? The student count is expected to continue to drop, and will continue to drop until 2026, down below 70,000 at this point in time. Now, we've got a lot that we're doing. I'm asking lawmakers to accept the fact and the reality that if we don't do something differently, our kids are going to suffer, because education quality will suffer as more and more money is diverted away from them and into an old and inefficient system. So here are those facts. First, we have an education system that was built for a much larger student population. 20 years ago, we were educating 103,000 students. Today, it's 76,000, almost 30,000 fewer, and we're spending $1.7 billion to do so. In that same period, the average staff to student ratio, and that's total staff, not just teachers, has become an astounding one staff, this is average, one staff member for every 4.25 students. By far the lowest in the country. There are schools all around the state, many of them just 5, 10, 15 miles from others in the same predicament, each operating classrooms that are half the size, or sometimes even smaller than they were 20 years ago. Now, there are a lot of smart people in this room. I've met a few of you over the last couple of years and some today. And if I were to give you a check for $1.7 billion and ask you to design the nation's best education system for 76,000 kids, I dare say it would look like anything like it does today. Now, again, to remind you, the student count is going down and is going to continue to go down. Now, the other factor is that education, as you might know, is the single largest expenditure in state government. As much as we complain about rising health costs, healthcare costs, it's even outpacing growth in that area. Now, third, these costs aren't translating to better outcomes, because most of the cost increase is going into preserving an outdated and inefficient system, or into expanding opportunities in communities that can afford tax hikes, while those districts who can't get by with the basics. Now, I'll come back to this regressive and growing inequality in a moment. But looking at the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is one of the few ways to actually compare performance in Vermont to national averages, Vermont students performed about 2 percentage points better than the national average. That's good news. But our per pupil spending is double the national average. Now, as well, fourth, the Brigham decision and Act 60 were about equal access to education funding. Yet opportunities, outcomes, and funding remain alarmingly unequal for many. We have some schools offering a wide range of foreign languages, cutting-edge science, technology, and engineering classes, not to mention sports and drama and music programs. And then we have other schools who can't offer any of these opportunities. We have statewide test results that suggest the substantial increase in education spending over the last 20 years has not closed the achievement gaps in our schools. And we have districts which have trimmed programs for kids to restrain that budget growth, only to learn their tax rates are actually going up because other schools have increased their spending dramatically. And that's what Act 60 did. Put us all together, and you send your invoices, and then you split up the costs. Finally, while we pride ourselves on local government, something I believe in as well, our statewide funding formula and a single state education fund make it hard to deny that Montpelier inserted itself into local education decisions when Act 60 passed in the 90s. So it's clear to me that the structure and inefficiency of our system is eroding opportunities for our kids. Think of it this way. Every dollar we spend on underutilized space in our schools is a dollar that's not being utilized to expand opportunities and outcomes for our children. Further, ever-growing property taxes, which are used to fund K-12 education, are contributing to an affordability crisis that impacts our ability to invest in other areas of education, like childcare and higher ed, as well as human services and other priorities like cleaning up our lakes. That's why, since my inaugural address, I've called for reforms that will provide savings which can be reinvested in a cradle-to-career system, which will not only provide quality educational opportunities at every stage of life, but make Vermont an education destination, attracting those working families that we so desperately need so we can rebuild our workforce and grow the economy. So over the last 17 months, I put forward dozens of ideas, proposals, and initiatives to achieve these goals, including 18 ideas to start this year, this legislative session. With the legislature's support, we have made some progress last year, increasing investments in our child care financial assistance program by $2.5 million, which is good news, and in the Vermont State College system by $3 million. And we did it without raising a single tax or fee, including statewide property taxes, for the first time in history, or at least in my memory. We also allowed for increased investment in educational opportunities, averaging about 3.25% per year for 5 years without raising taxes. Now, we also offer a stable 5-year plan to allow local school districts to take full advantage of the governance changes made under Act 46 and do some real structural reform at the community level. We have to face these facts. But unfortunately, so far, the legislature hasn't been willing to move forward with these steps. But we still have time, even as we face another education tax increases that I don't believe Vermonters can afford, and we don't need to raise taxes if we put these savings into place. But we have to act, and that's why this week I'll be introducing this other path forward, one that intentionally uses ideas already on the table from my team, already on the table from the legislature and other education stakeholders. The package, if the legislature agrees to work together on it, will strengthen our education system and is designed to achieve the following: to fully fund the increased investments local voters approved on town meeting day. They've done their part, while closing the remaining gap in our education fund so you don't see your state education taxes rise again this year. We also must stabilize the statewide education tax increases for those 5 years. If we can do that, make those investments, we can make sure that statewide property taxes don't go up for the next 5 years, so we can count on something. Because what we don't like is unpredictability. I didn't like it in business, and we don't like it as individuals. We can also generate hundreds of millions of dollars in savings over 5 years that can be reinvested in early childhood development, K through 12, technical education, what I think is really important. We need to invest in the trades, higher education as well, and even maybe lowering property tax rates as well. But it gives us that ability to do so. Now, this is a transformative plan and at improving educational opportunities. And again, we can do all this with a combination of ideas the legislature and administration have already offered. So this is nothing new, it's just putting everything together. As we introduce this in the coming days, it is my sincere hope that Montpelier can put aside our politics and put the gamemanship aside, focus on progress over process, and have the courage to recognize our urgent need to move beyond the policies of the past, to improve the state's economic and demographic trajectory so we can have a much more prosperous future here in Vermont. This is true of most of the issues that we face, which I've spoken a lot about lately, which is this growth of political polarization. Too many of our fellow citizens on both sides of every issue have given up on listening, deciding to no longer consider other options, deciding to no longer consider other viewpoints or other perspectives. Our national dialogue has been reduced to angry, hateful, and vicious social media posts on both sides of the aisle, where facts and details no longer seem to matter. The idea that consensus and compromise is somehow unacceptable, that one side is always totally right or all wrong, that we can't debate issues and find common ground or simply agree to disagree respectfully. This is like a winner-take-all mentality that's gone across our country. I believe these things are hurting our nation and our way of life, and this is not a trend, and it's not a new trend, and it's not related to any one issue or any one party. Yet, in my opinion, we've reached that dangerous tipping point where our debates and activism have somehow turned intensely and unduly personal, sometimes downright hateful. So we have these online insults, these slurs and angry exchanges between people we've never met far too often. And many write things online, hiding behind their keyboard and in their homes or basements that they never say face to face. In my view, that's cowardly. But we can do better. And I believe we have an obligation to do so because our kids are watching what we're doing. You know, we need better role models in this country. And we have an opportunity to do so. And I know as I look around the room, there are a lot of good role models here, but we lack them in society today. And it's something that we really have to, we're challenged to do the right thing, each and every one of us in our own backyard. Sometimes we can't determine what's going to happen on the national level, but we certainly can here in our state, and I'm determined to do so. And again, we can disagree, but we can do so respectfully and civilly. And I think we owe it to each other to do that. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions about anything that might be on your mind.
Well, hang on one second. We have a microphone. We want to thank you, first of all, for joining us today. And we're going to take the microphone around for a little Q&A. And actually, when I say we, I mean Kate. And I just
And I promise not to sing while I bring the mic around.
Governor, I'm John Leader. I own Pepsi Cola here in Brattleboro at Exit 3. And I'd like to, you pretty much stated that you're not in favor of signing any legislation that has tax increases. But I'd like to talk to you about Act Senate 260, which is just to clean up Lake Champlain. And I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a wonderful goal. My problem is how they propose to pay for it. And what they've decided is that they want to take the unclaimed deposits from all of the soft drinks and beer people, which was given to us by the Senate when they passed the bill 43 years ago, to administrate the program. I would like to know why that's not a backdoor tax increase, because the only thing that we can do when we have a hit like that, which is 7 to 10% of our business, we would have to take that money that we lose to administrate that program and increase the price of our product. So now that the effect of that is that soft drinks again would go up 10 cents or more per six-pack. Beer would go up probably 10 cents a bottle. It just essentially does the same thing as a tax increase. It's passing the cost on to the consumer. And we have a river out here that is the border between us and New Hampshire. And here in this part of the state, we lose business to New Hampshire every day. This just gives more incentive for people to go over and shop in New Hampshire. The other part of that bill is they want to increase the rooms and meal tax by 0.25%, which again would take more people out of the state and cost us more tourism. So my feeling is that if if they want the streets, the unclaimed deposits, I don't understand why that's not just the same as a tax increase. So I thought I would run that by you to see whether that's something that you have heard, or are you in touch with it and so forth?
We're obviously monitoring S260, and I would agree that I have put a line in the sand because I believe that we can do better, that we don't need to raise tax and fees in order to accomplish our goals. And I always look for ways to work together. I think we share the vision of the legislature, myself and those who are promoting that, to clean up our waterways. We have an obligation to do so, and I'm committed to doing that. We actually have $100 million worth of projects right now that are in the queue, so to speak. That when we have funding that we put aside to do that over the next couple of years. So we're okay, but we do need at some point a long-term funding source, but it's not today. I believe if we focus on areas where we can grow the economy, where we've shown that we can actually bring more economic growth into the state, that we'll have those resources to do what we need to do. I have a couple of other ideas that we can fall back on next year, but I don't believe that the natural reaction to many is the knee-jerk reaction is just when we have a problem, it's just to raise taxes. And I believe there are other opportunities to do better, and so I'm in favor of certain parts of S260, but not the financing portion of that. So we are watching that. We have let our voices known. We've testified in the committees, but we'll see where that goes. I believe it's in Ways and Means now, Laura. I think so. I think it's in Ways and Means at this point, but it hasn't gone through. Then it will go to the House floor, and then there are enough differences between the bills that it will go to a conference committee. But again, if it includes a increase in a tax or fee, then I'd be forced to veto it because I've said that we don't need to do that right now, and we can continue. We've got all these projects we're moving forward with right now, so it's not as though we need the money for this year.
Thank you.
Hi, Governor Scott. My name is Dave Twombly. And first of all, I would like to applaud you for your backing in signing those gun law bills. And I'm sure I'm not alone in thanking you for that. I just wish a lot of our other politicians had the same fortitude, foresight, and courage that you do as well. On a different note, regarding Act 46, I understand that was voted down by the majority of towns in this area, and from my understanding of it, it would have had a significant impact on the municipal tax rate here as well. I live in Brattleboro. I have a business here in Brattleboro as well, and my concern is it seems like taxes are really high, especially in this area. And I understand there has been another proposal that has been put across, the alternative governance proposal, what have you. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on that, if you're going to support that. And again, when you look at the taxes that could be generated, how that could be evenly distributed so that a place like Brattleboro does not get hit really hard with increased taxes.
Yeah, with some of the provisions of Act 46, the Agency of Education is working on that, and the State Board as well. And we'll be moving forward, and I'm sure in some respects it's going to be very controversial, but we're moving forward to make sure that we meet the deadline of, I think it's June 1st, then we have to announce some of those. And you're right, you can make those applications for an alternative measure. And again, I'm letting the Agency of Education as well as the State Board determine that. But the legislature made a decision on that a couple of years ago. I had, at the time, it wouldn't have been the way I would have done it, but at least we took action because of what I've said. I mean, this school population, what we're facing in Vermont is concerning. The demographics are shifting. We're getting older. We've lost, again, I talk about our workforce a lot. But when you look at the age group 25 to 45, we've lost 30,000 out of that category alone. 30,000 of our workers out of that category. When you think about that, at 25 to 45, those are the folks that, you know, buy homes, they have families, they utilize services, they buy products, then they pay taxes on top of that. And so if we don't have them in the system, it puts the burden on the rest of us. So for the first time ever last year, we had a population decline in Vermont. So that's concerning to me. That's not progress. We're the second oldest state in the nation. We're soon to be number one if we don't change our ways. So we're going to have to accept some of the realities of what we are and where we are, depletion of the workforce, fewer students, that we have to figure out a way to take and make a more efficient system without sacrificing educational opportunities. So we're meeting that. Again, I'll be putting a plan out tomorrow to try and work our way through that over the next 5 years. So we have a plan where we can account for savings and then reinvestment in areas that I think will give us the biggest return. So in terms of the governance structure, those applications have been made, and I haven't been privy to which ones will be accepted and which ones won't.
Thank you. We have time for maybe one more question. Is there anybody else?
Hi, my name's Lisa Ford. I have a short-term rental that used to be a long-term rental, and I'm not alone in this group of people who will not put their short-term rental back onto the long-term rental market, knowing that there is a huge long-term rental crisis in Vermont. And so I'm just asking you, Governor, what is Montpelier doing to ask the thousands of people who are using platforms like Airbnb and VRBOs, ask us why we're not putting our rentals back on the long-term rental market, because there's lots of challenges with that market for landlords, and how we can, and what our suggestions would be to improve that system and to get our rentals back on that market. Because I feel terrible, actually, not making my place available to people who need it.
Well, a couple of things with that. First of all, I don't think the right approach is to tax you on that. I don't think that helps the situation at all. But I would ask you as well for your advice in terms of what we can do to help. I remember I had a 4-unit apartment house. It was probably 20 years ago. I bought it as an investment with a friend of mine, a good friend of mine. And we owned it for about 10 years. And the happiest day of my life was the day I sold it. It's really a difficult market. And I've counseled many who think that they want to buy apartment houses. And I said, you either need a number of them or you need to live at the one you're renting. Because otherwise it's very, very difficult and very difficult to monitor. And I don't know if that's gotten any better since then. So we would take advice. I would offer, please email us. We're trying to do whatever we can. Housing is critical in terms of what we do in the future, because when I talk with some of our students who are graduating, the good news is we have 40,000 students going to our colleges and universities at any one given period of time. We have about 10,000 graduate every single year. So there's an opportunity there, because we need to, again, grow our workforce. We need more people living here. And as I travel the state, I'm seeing hundreds and hundreds of jobs available. There's 1,200 jobs open right now in healthcare, right now. I saw it on our Labor Department report last week throughout all the hospitals and different providers throughout the state. And there's another 1,200 jobs in manufacturing as well. So there are opportunities here. But when I ask our students and our youth what it would take to keep you here, they first say, I need a job, opportunity, good paying job. Secondly, I need decent, affordable housing. That's something that they have a critical need. So last year, I mean, with the help of the legislature, we were able to pass a $35 million housing bond. That will leverage another $65 million, making it the single largest investment in housing Vermont has ever seen. And that's going to be critical. It's not overnight. It's not something that's going to happen next week or next month or next year. But we're continuing to build on that housing stock. And we have some other ideas as well. So we know it's something that is critical for us because that's what they say they need. And it's part of the answer. So again, you obviously haven't been listened to yet, or maybe you've written to us, but Katie, write to Katie Buckley. She's our Commissioner of Housing. You already have, maybe? Okay. Well, please get that to us. And again, we'll do what we can. Our legislators as well could put forward some bills that could be helpful in the future to help in that area.
Thank you so much, Governor Scott. Kate, oh, you're not kneeling over here? Okay. Kate and I would like to present you with something on behalf of the chamber, but also because we think these are the best cookies ever. And they come from the Vermont Country Deli. And look at those things. Are they awesome? They're the best cookies ever. So thank you, Vermont Country Deli, for that. They make the best cookies.
I don't think I've had a nicer gift than this.
Oh. Well, there you go. So thank you so much for coming. And you want to take a picture with the cookies? Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and
Appreciate it.
thank you all for coming, and nice round of applause to the governor. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us today. Pay attention to your e-commerce things that we get, that we have so many more events coming up, but I just can't thank you enough for welcoming Governor Scott to Southern Vermont. We love when people come down here, right? Yes. And let's give him one more round of applause.